And take you over here to our very own JD Conti, who's going to be chatting with us a little bit more about his story today and the latest here on the update for Next Gen, I believe, or next. Is it Nextra? I wanted to say it correctly. Did I say it correctly?
I'll have to look back. Sometimes when you've been sitting there for a while, I don't remember. Anyway, so you might have heard there's a big project going on in Anderson County, and it started at the White House. So this is part of a deal between the White House and Japan, one of those trade deals that President Trump likes to talk about sometimes. It's a $16 billion investment in Anderson County. It was announced last month when the White House had some representatives from the Japanese government there. I believe Representative Cody Harris, who represents that area, was there at the dinner when it was announced. And today we're kind of seeing this kind of start to play out in the real places where it happens. Mm-hmm. So it's a $16 investment in a natural gas plant in Anderson County. So what's going to happen here is they plan to have it online by 2028. But it's a partnership with the Department of Commerce and this company. And because it's a federal partnership, it seems like there are some things that are still not fully fluctuated yet. And this company has fully said they're in the studying phase. There's still a lot of things that aren't fluctuated yet, mainly the amount of water they would need. So this thing would be air cooled. Mm-hmm. And whenever you're talking about these kind of big projects that you're seeing all over the place, especially here in East Texas and especially in a place like Anderson County, the big question is water. You know, how are we going to cool these things, whether it's data centers, solar, et cetera, et cetera. So this thing would be air cooled, but because of the size of this plant, it's still going to need some water. And I would go out on a limb and imagine a decent amount of water, but we still don't know how much yet. They're studying that right now, and they're already having meetings with the Groundwater Conservation District and seeing, okay, what are we going to do here? So that's just an answer we don't really have right now. We do have some job numbers. We do know that it would create 100 permanent jobs in the area. And while this is being constructed, it's supposed to be online by 2028 and then fully complete by 2032, there would be around 3,000 construction jobs. So that's pretty exciting economically there. So there's a lot of things we don't have yet. The other thing that's kind of a really big question mark in this area is taxes. So this is a federal project, and the kind of question is who's actually going to own this project, because it's a partnership with the Department of Commerce. So in some instances, the way it was explained is that when there's these kind of projects, the federal government might actually own the building. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, okay, is this going to be owned by the private company, or is it going to be owned by the federal government? Because if it's owned by the government, then it's non-taxable, and then Anderson County and the school districts don't get anything. And the other answer I have is a non-answer. We don't know right now. So, and the company representatives for Nextra were like, I wish I could tell you that. I'm going to paraphrase the gentleman who spoke today. He said, I am trying to get an answer from the Department of Commerce as soon as possible, because obviously, I don't know what the taxes would be like, but you talk about a $16 billion investment in a county like Anderson, which is relatively small. And then the school district superintendent for, I forget which school district it was, I believe it was Cayuga. The tax dollars, I can only imagine, because this would be one of the largest, if not the largest, natural gas plant in the country. And it's going to put 5.2 gigawatts of power back into the grid. That would be a lot of tax base money. And if it's not going to be on the tax base, still jobs, but that's a huge amount of money that'd be going into our communities. So that's a big question mark. So there's a lot of questions right now. And the developers said, as soon as the White House announced this thing, they wanted to get here and get some data out. I think, there was a lot of people there, had a lot of questions. Some felt like they were answered, some didn't. So tonight at 6 o'clock, we're going to kind of break down what we learned, what we don't know yet, and kind of where we're at going forward. Mm-hmm. The other thing I'll say is that because of this power plant, they were very open in saying there could be other projects coming to the site, like a data center, like some kind of large industrial capacity, because when you've got 5.2 gigawatts of power, you can power certain things like X, Y, or Z. So there's nothing in plan for that. But when you're working with the federal government wants certain things. So this developer, this guy was, he was very plain and blunt and funny about this. He's like, I am telling you guys this when the federal government comes in and says we're going to do this. just be prepared in case it happens. I'm paraphrasing what he said because that's basically how he said it. And everyone shook their head and was like, yeah. So we talked to the county judge down there, and we'll just kind of break down tonight kind of what we know, what's going forward, and kind of just the process we anticipate.
All right. Well, JD, I know we have a little bit of an interview to take a look at.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and dive in.
I thought it went pretty good. I was very pleased. We had a lot of interaction, just over the phone and trying to find out some of the data. The questions that we had are the same questions that a lot of the people from Anderson County and the surrounding areas, especially about our groundwater and things like that. So I think we asked a lot of the same questions that the people want answers to. And that way we cut down on the speculation and rumors and, what is this going to do for us and those kind of things. So I was pleasantly pleased with their presentation and their willingness to come in and do this. I mean, we had overflow rooms across the hall and about 50 people over there. So we were trying to make sure that anybody that wanted to be at the meeting could be at the meeting.
What does it seem like they don't have it all figured out yet with the water, but what are they trying to do in terms of that?
Well, some of it, and that's why I wanted them to present, because I wasn't sure quite all of what their negotiations are, but they're trying to find alternatives to groundwater. And so that's a positive. And there's been 2 or 3 things that we've talked about, but they're doing their investigation to find out, what's available and what they can do. So I don't really want to speculate on that myself.
Okay. So this is a federal project as well. So when you're talking about that, what does it, mean for you guys? When it seems like we're kind of in a waiting game of how much we know. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, it was kind of like I said in the meeting, it was a surprise when the president announced the project, because we were just getting some information on it. So it's a big project. It's going to, for our people here in Anderson County in East Texas, that'd create jobs and be good for our local businesses. That was one of the questions that Dr. Satterwhite, the superintendent at Cayuga, and I had discussed is this going to be federally owned? Is this going to be owned by the United States and Japan, or is this going to be something that is going to, or in a tax exempt status because of, that'll be part of our tax base, or is it going to be a private entity? And those were relevant questions for us to ask today. And I wasn't trying to put anybody on the spot. I just wanted to give them an opportunity, if they had an answer for us, to give it to us. And so I don't have a definite answer. We'll see how that shakes out.
Okay. Back to the water thing, so it'll be an air cooling system, correct?
That's my understanding, yes. It'll have some water with it, and they're going to need some water, but yes, it's air cooled.
Okay.
And that was in their presentation.
Yes. And then they're just still looking for other alternatives like wastewater, other things like that to
Right.
diminish the water impact.
Yeah, I think they had a positive interaction with the Trinity River Authority. And they have been coming to our groundwater meetings. We've been to the GMA 11 meetings in Nacogdoches. So this is a real learning process for me, as well as a lot of other officials. Dr. Hutchinson is a hydrologist that's working with the GMA 11, and he's provided information to them on suggested approaches and policies to make sure we protect the groundwater. To make sure we don't have a bunch of dry wells. And so I've been to 2 of those meetings, and the good thing about his presentation is he does it in a way that people can understand. It's not over their head, and so that's been very helpful.
Yes. So then how will you prioritize and keep the residents nearby safe?
Well, the main thing is again, we're working with the groundwater district to try to put production limits in place. Myself, the attorney for all 6 counties, were there. We spoke at the groundwater meeting just a few weeks ago, and emphasizing that we need the production limits to protect our groundwater. We had the attorney presented actually the statute that allows them to do that and put production limits on. And then the other part was he had given them a sample policy of what back in 2023, there was a policy put in place by a county, and he actually shared that with them to give them something to start with. So if we can get some production limits in place that are reasonable for our area, of course, hydrology studies are important to make sure that you're doing the right thing. You got to have the data to be able to take and make good decisions, and that's what the groundwater district's trying to do. So,
And this will support the local grid and the state grid, correct?
well, essentially, it's going to be on the grid for ERCOT to increase the capacity. So it's not going to be like it'll be dedicated just to Anderson County. It'll be on the grid to increase our capabilities or the capacity to have electric power for the state of Texas. And I think that's what President Trump in his announcement, and I think Cody Harris actually addressed that too when he made his announcement.
What do you make of the fact that this could potentially one day host another industrial site? They've talked about a data center. I mean, it's still very up in the air, but you know.
We'll just have to address that if it comes, okay? And that'll be a whole separate topic.
Yeah.
Okay, there's pros and cons to that too. I have talked to some county judges in some other counties that have had to deal with those issues, and there are different ways to go about those things to make it either safer. And I really don't want to get off into it because at this point, I'm still learning about data centers and things like that. Okay.
So they said this could be potentially the largest plant in the whole country. So what's your reaction to having that right here in your district?
I think it says something for our county from an economic development standpoint. If we're creating jobs and hopefully it'll increase our tax base. But as I explained in court, that's not a decision that we make. That's going to be a decision that either through permitting, through TCEQ and the Trinity River Authority and the Groundwater District, those are the people that's going to decide whether how this proceeds, how the project proceeds. Yeah. But I think it's major. You know, when you get up one morning, you go to a meeting and you find out in the news that the president just announced that you're going to get a power plant in your county, and so I thought that was pretty good.
So you said just now that it was TCEQ, but who's going to decide whether or not that you guys get the tax money for this? Is that going to be the federal government?
The main issue there is going to be, is this going to be a private entity, or is this going to pay taxes, or is it going to be a governmental entity that's tax exempt?